Hey guys, Ryan here. So, as long as there's been Power Rangers, there's been Megazords. And as long as there's been Megazords, there's been Mecha. And as long as there's been toy versions of both, there's probably one version that's better than the other. So here's my suggestions for the top 5 Megazords to buy from Japan. Number 5, Zeo Megazord. So this definitely won't come as a surprise to those of you that watch my Zeo Megazord review. The Japanese O-Ranger equivalent is just so much better. While still obviously at this point using the Bandai Japan base molds, they did swap out an unusually high amount of materials in this one. The chrome on Zeozords 1, 2 and 3 being some of the more obvious pieces which got degraded back down to gold coloured plastic. But my ultimate pinch point being the chains on Zeozords 1 and 2 used for their artillery mode were famously replaced with gold coloured string. To this day I still don't get it unless they got some complaints about the chain that came with Titanus. Yeah, I think it really lowers what is a classy, really cool, unique mode and turns it into just a toy. Which I know it obviously is, it is a toy, but to know that kids in Japan were receiving something of a much better, more grand standing, I think you probably should go with that version over the Power Rangers version, if you can of course. Both unfortunately are extremely rare, extremely pricey these days. Number 4, the Legendary Megazord. So, Go Kaio and Go Kaija, the Legendary Megazord in Super Mega Force. While I think my fury over this has cooled in recent years, and I can appreciate there is a place for Legendary Megazord now, probably I would say for use on its own, for use with the Silver Ranger Zord, or maybe for the Ultimate Legendary Megazord combo, assuming of course you can get a third-party sticker for that chest plate. Yeah, back in 2014, Bandai decided that the 5 opening doors gimmick was not going to be a thing for Power Rangers, and they were going to reduce that down to just the Red Ranger Zord opening. As some of you know from my top 5 worst Zord builder compromises video, I decided that was enough to get me to import all the Gokai machines. That was the first time at that time that I'd ever bought a Zord from Japan. So yeah, breaking points come at different places for us all. But yeah, that was it for me. I really wanted the Legendary Zords to actually look screen accurate, to not just be armor that builds over the top of the Zords, but to actually become cohesively part of the inside of it. I kind of like the metaphor for that team that they are showy as they were in Go Kaija. They are flashy pirates, but they don't have much substance, they don't have much inside of them, and that's the part that the Legendary Zords fulfill. Of course in America, where we were still getting the roided out Ranger figures, it's more about having armor, having more on top of what you've already got, and that's kind of how the show treated the Legendary Zords as well. Number 3, the Samurai Megazord. This is another overlap entry from my worst Zord builder compromises vid, and it's all about symbol mode unfortunately. Bandai America used to really prioritise the humanised look of the combined Megazord at the expense of what the Zords could do. So although Samurai Megazord looks far sleeker than the Shinken-O Japanese equivalent, I think those of you like me that wouldn't be able to get over what it can't do would end up resorting to the Japanese version because it gives you that functionality back. Really functionality that should have been there from the beginning. These are origami style Zords, they are designed to fold up in different ways, and the symbols being such a key part of iconography of that season, they should have allowed it to be possible, but of course they cheaped out, they took it out to meet a price point for the store shelves. Fun fact 1 of 2, they did actually release the Shinken-O as what they deemed the Nippon version during Megaforce randomly. A bit too late for those that actually wanted it, but kind of cool that it was possible for a short period to be able to pick up the Japanese version, which could form the symbol mode. And fun fact 2 of 2, more recently in Japan they released a more artisan style version of Shinken-O, and this, as well as having more finesse details like the helmet and stuff and the sword, actually gave you the option of being able to stack 4 of the symbols as a tower, which actually is screen accurate to what happens when they're introduced in the show. So although it's a far more pricey version of the Shinken-O, if you really wanted to go A+ for accuracy, that's probably the one to go for. But then again, I suppose on the flip side, if you want your Megazord mode to look a bit more screen accurate, a bit more human, then maybe you want the Bandai America one as well. I didn't say that, ignore me. Number 2, Shogun Megazord. So yeah, our 4th 5-Zord combining Megazord ever in Power Rangers, and of course they were fitting it on top of a blueprint. At that time, a 5-colour blueprint which had never changed. That was red, yellow, blue, black and pink. But those of you with eyes that saw the footage of the Mukeshi Shogun in the show know that that Zord should be white, and in fact Tommy and Kat co-piloted it as a white Shogun Zord as well. This is because from the Kaku Ranger source footage there was no pink ranger, there was a white ranger. So while it did fit in with Tommy being on the team, and they lucked out with Amy Jo Johnson leaving because it gave them a reason why the Zord was white, kind of, the toy famously resorted back to that pink colouring and gave us a screen inaccurate Zord, unless you count the Ultra Zord scenes which use the toy. In a way, it's kind of fine to have all 6. It's extremely likely these days for arms to be swapped for another extremely similar one. So yeah, maybe the Shogun Megazord colour change was just ahead of its time. But if it's the screen accurate one you want, then yeah, you want the Japanese version. Also, notwithstanding, the chest symbol, which was an S on the Power Rangers version, is given its proper form on the Japanese version. I don't so much mind that they made the Zord pink for Power Rangers. I didn't really at the time. It's only in the years following that it kind of started to grate on me, and I started to think it would be quite nice to have the screen accurate white one. And number 1, the Drivemax Megazord. So yeah, Operation Overdrive, not really a season I'm all that familiar with, but it was a crucial crux point in the road of Bandai America's Megazord design, where things really started to go against the grain more than they ever had before. You can tell this is the point where Bandai America really were starting to flirt with the idea of creating their own molds. Drivemax Megazord, the default Megazord of Operation Overdrive, was their first stab at this, and wow, speaking of stab, they really butchered it. At a base level, and really unusual for Bandai America, there's far less paint detail on this mold than there was on the Japanese. So even if you knew was actually missing from the American version, you're not actually given the proper window space for it to fill it in yourself. I think this one was well derided for being oversized and under-engineered. By some miracle, it does form its Mega Truck 5-Zord combination, but of course limiting the hinge piece needed in the pink Zord means that it can't form a combination later down the road. I would say Operation Overdrive was one of the worst Zord lines Bandai America ever did. It was just a big mismatch. They released Japanese versions for some, but then they did their own here, making it oversized and just generally quite ugly. A real mess. Zord lines really have to be one or the other, they can't be both. From a floppy yellow Zord arm to red not having the correct legs, this is just not a good one, and this is really where you have to import from Japan. So come on then, which ones of you thought that the Mighty Morphin original Dino Megazord was going to be number 1? I will give it an honourable mention here because the sword was way better in Japan, and actually in the first American release. Decals are naturally way better in that Japanese version. They changed the stickers atrociously for America. However, that one didn't make the top 5 because there are solutions to that. You can get some third-party stickers, you can replace them. You could even buy a third-party, probably die-cast sword for your Megazord if you wanted. So that is a problem that you can actually solve. How I chose the rest of the toys on this list was that there was just something fundamentally wrong that was just much harder to resolve. You can't fix the more functional problems of whole plastic pieces being wrong, and so that's how I got the list that I got. What do you guys think? Is there anything I've not considered? Is there any you'd vote out of the top 5 and replace with one of your own? Thanks as ever for watching this one. Until the next time then, I will see you later.